Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. So a quick little PSA here, because I still regularly see comments that are unaware of a little quirk when it comes to auto skills. So if you didn't know, the auto skills have a lot of rules that they follow. They're not random. So basically, when it comes to the skills, if you didn't know, anything that activates automatically at the start of your turn will always travel from left to right. Now, there aren't too many things that will directly conflict with each other, but there are a few classes that uniquely benefit from something like this. For example, if you're running a frontline Buccaneer and you wanted to run both Speed Star and Evade, you probably want to put down Speed Star first so that if it ends up triggering, it doesn't bounce off of the Evade here. So you can run both at the same time. Now, typically on a more regular basis, you probably would prefer to run something like a Speed Star and Risk Management on them, but still, it's just kind of something to bear in mind. Now, this is something that you'll typically see come up a bit more often on your ninjas, if I can remember where on earth I put them, because I resorted everybody. But for example, if you had, let's say you got your ninja over here, and you want to make sure that you're getting a particular debuff, right? So let's say you wanted to have the option of having multiple debuffs with you, like you wanted to be able to stun sometimes, you wanted to be able to silence other times, but you wanted to make sure that, at the very least, you had a venom on there most of the time. Like, you just wanted to have the option there. It wasn't super important to have it available right away, but you wanted to make sure that, for example, you had your poison available here, right? So if you wanted to kind of prioritize having poison over everything else, you would leave it to the right of your list. You would leave a Benum off to the left of it because, maybe it's a little bit less important. And maybe if the least important one for you is Bridle, then you would leave it down here at the bottom. This would mean that at the very least you have two other rolls to make sure that you've got something on your attack. If, for example, you're running something like a short bow setup, you want to go and park them up somewhere, have them do a little bit of a long-range sniping or what have you. And you wanted to make sure that you were dropping those debuffs consistently. For those that didn't know, ninjas are basically guaranteed to drop a debuff that's attached to their weapon, and seeing as they pretty much can't miss, they're guaranteed to drop silence, stun, or poison, which is going to be a very useful tool in a lot of situations. But this gives you that little bit of flexibility to play around with the stuff as needed. Again, there's not very many skills that will conflict with each other. There's really one other notable example here to bring up here, and that's going to be with the Lord, where, for example, with the Lord, you're allowed to basically equip just about any skill in the game, and while doing so, you may potentially notice that there's actually an activation limit when it comes to your skills. You can't activate more than 4 skills at once. So, for example, if you were to activate a Phalanx, a Lament of the Dead, an Engulf, and a Conserve MP at the same time, you would have a little bit of an issue. Specifically, if this is by itself, it wouldn't... Okay, you can't actually technically stack a Lament of the Dead. Let's say not even an Empower. What do we want to stack on here? Let's go ahead and put a... Do we want Speed Star? There's really not too many things that will stack in this weird particular way. But basically, like, let's say you have Phalanx, you have your Mind's Eye. Technically, these two would conflict. Let's go ahead and put Steel Stance here instead. Okay, so you've got your Steel Stance, you want to have your Mind's Eye, you want to have, let's say, your Engulf is active and your Conserve MP. By itself, he would be able to activate these 4, and it wouldn't be too much of a problem. But say he's standing next to a warrior who's got Vigorous Attack. He puts the Vigorous Attack on him. Suddenly, whatever the first 3 of these are to roll are going to be stacked on him. But the last one, like if he ended up turning on Steel Stance, he turns on his Mind's Eye, he turns on his Engulf, his Conserve MP would not be able to roll in that situation because there is a limit of 4. Now, this, again, is something that only affects the Lord when it comes to auto skills. So you'd basically be hard-pressed to make this happen on just about anybody else. I mean, you'd literally have to go out of your way to, for example, go get somebody with Vigorous Attack, and then go ahead and give them an Archer nearby, and then you'd make them a Caster, and then you'd basically have to stack a bunch of activatables that you wouldn't otherwise be able to activate. And now, bear in mind, this really is only an issue on the Lord in particular, just because you'd end up potentially in one of those situations where he wouldn't, in this case, have a ranged attack that would be able to get rid of Eagle Eye, for example, which is like when I first discovered this whole thing. That I run a lot of archers. I had Eagle Eye on there. It's a very useful skill, and then I was wondering like why on earth is Conserve never rolling? In Sand Bronze, I kind of need it for this build to work, and then it just kind of clicked. Like, yeah, the limit is 4. You can only carry 4 activatables at the same time, and he just happened to run into that oddly specific scenario. Again, I can't stress enough how, like, this almost never comes up, but if you, for some reason, happen to have run into that situation before, there you go. That's a thing. I was dead convinced at the time that somehow stun was affecting the odds of skills to roll because he had 100% activation odds, and yet that conserve MP wasn't rolling for him. So I would generally recommend anything that's a bit more kind of vital for your build that you go ahead and keep that to the left. Like if you have something like conserve MP, always keep that to your left. Additionally, another unit that will potentially see this coming up is going to be something like the Lich here, where typically I would recommend keeping Salvation to the left of Meditate, because in their particular instance, if they use Salvation, they've got a lot of MP, they can spread it around the entire party, and then they still have Meditate for themselves. So if they have guaranteed activation on their skills, you can create a situation where they're essentially spreading a lot of MP around all over the place. You can make this work the other way by activating their Meditate first and then having the Salvation spread it out. Meditate will just barely typically clear the threshold, depending on how much MP they've actually got. But like it says, it'll divide it among friendly units within 2 tiles if it's at 50% or more, or it'll absorb if it's 50% or less. So the skill will do different things in different situations. It takes a little bit of figuring out to use properly, but this functionally can give you more or less infinite MP on multiple units, especially if you've got multiple Meditate users, and especially multiple Liches standing nearby each other. They can just keep circle jerking their MP all over the place. It's pretty darn funny. Like, you can just basically take a turn to go use Life Force into a Salvation, and then immediately be available to do it again with a Meditate the next round. Alright, anyway, so I hope this was a useful little PSA if you didn't know about this little quirk. Again, this doesn't really affect everybody out there, but just, if you happen to have been wondering whether it was random or not, no, it's not random. There are rules. Tactics Ogre in general is about basically creating your own kind of stuff that would be pre-baked skills in many other games. So, sometimes it helps to know this kind of stuff. Alright, y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care, and thank you for stopping by. Later.